Saitama has finally showcased his true power in One Punch Man manga after 10 years since it began.
Oh my god.
In chapter 167, Saitama declared that his dream from chapter 1 of having a real fight has come true. He's finally fighting an opponent that doesn't, instantly die.
A few minutes later.
I'm not gonna cry, but I really fucked.
This is why it's the best time to scale Saitama's character, because he has literally, and I mean literally, broken every single feat we've known he's done in the past. Meaning it's time to go balls deep, scaling, quantifying, and using our degree in anime bullshit science to put everything in perspective. To begin, let's explain how Saitama became limitless, as chapter 167 confirmed the theory that Dr. Genos had made with the last page of the chapter stating Saitama is limitless. We all know Saitama had unparalleled determination to become strong. His training led him to break his limiter as he pushed himself above and beyond his physical and mental limits. In chapter 88, the story explains how Saitama overcame everyone. Genos and the House of Evolution wanted to create human perfection. However, Genos stopped the experiment when he realized Saitama had become the perfect person he sought after. Saitama achieved this by tearing off what are known as limiters. These limiters are placed by God as a means to stop people from reaching beyond their own physical capabilities, or else their power will only serve to damage themselves until the final outcome is that of a mindless, rampaging monster. Psycho states it is possible to reach the next stage if one conquers death, and if the process is repeated, you end up with explosive growth. Saitama, as stated by Genos, had no natural talent and broke his limiter through sheer willpower and hard work, meaning the 3 years of consecutive training caused him to reach a near-death experience. Now, in the webcomic, My Mask mentions that there are numerous errors in One Punch Man chapter 119. He recounts how people struggled for land in global wars until the population dropped and they prioritized future generations. This was the first era of change. However, the aftermath of war still seeped through, as things like climate change reshaped the world again, resulting in the second era of change, where the population had to migrate to a single landmass to survive. The way humans survived was by being continuous environmental creatures, being able to adapt. However, modern society is different. In a way, you might imagine it as humanity reaching a point in their evolution when they have reached their limits, or have found an over-reliance on a system like the hero system. That's why Blast tells Tatsumaki never to rely on someone else, and only comes around when humanity is in danger, for example. This, plus the influx of monsters, suggests that they're in the third era of change. My Mask says that they need an immune system to survive this new era, and Saitama being called a superhero by My Mask confirms that he is the first of Genos' idea of perfect people. Overall, Saitama is the strongest being on the globe because he has adapted to the new period. This was even foreshadowed when he explains his training, where he doesn't use air conditioning, a heater, or anything else to make his training easier. He persevered through the struggle to enhance his human spirit, adapting to a new environment, molding him into normalcy. Now, to set things straight before we move forward, chapter 167 has not revealed Saitama's full power in its complete form. Although he does state he will be able to use his full power, he does realize after making that statement that he must handicap himself. Number 1. Saitama still has his promise with Tario. He told him he won't kill Garou because they have a connection and a bond and friendship. And we can assume Saitama is a man of his word. Therefore, he is fighting Garou without killing intent. Number 2. Saitama realizes he must keep Genos' core safe at all times. So he's fighting really precautiously. And number 3. Saitama is only fighting with one hand and will beat him with one hand. The story most definitely is setting up the fact that Saitama will only go truly 100% and fulfill his dream in full against the pure evil that is the celestial being called God. Therefore, Saitama is most definitely going to scale even higher in the future once the chapters of Saitama vs. this celestial god are released. However, let's go over what has been confirmed. For example, Saitama can mold the cosmos and change the reality of the world. This is in comparison to Popeye the Sailor Man being able to change the reality of his animated world, or Luffy changing the physics of the One Piece world in the recent chapters. To highlight this, we have to look no further than chapter 167. Saitama casually kicks away a dimensional portal and even moves it with his hands, where Garou wonders to himself like, what? He can even move hyperspace portals? To prove this even further, breaking his limiter has also allowed Saitama to enter a non-tangible space, like the Phoenix space, inside the monster's mind. There, he could listen to the conversation between Phoenix Man and Child Emperor, and even intimidated Phoenix Man to leave the spiritual realm. Furthermore, in the webcomic, Tatsumaki tried to disturb Saitama's psychic signal, also known as his aura, but it had no effect, only making Saitama's muscles twitch. Fubuki stated, a person's psychic persistence is directly linked to the person's willpower. But thanks to Saitama's unusually thick human spirit, which he had evolved through the rigorous training and is a new perfect human being in the new era, it makes it impossible for Tatsumaki, the strongest Esper, to do anything against him. So if the strongest Esper can't do anything to Saitama, that means he's immune to psychics. These are all signs that Saitama is a being that can manipulate the reality of the cosmos, just as Blast mentioned he can in chapter 166. So let's begin. We are going to scale Saitama and split this into multiple categories: power, speed, and durability. As we all know, Saitama is so powerful that he has a warped sense of reality. Even some of us as fans and readers may take the things he does lightly because even we've gotten used to it. For example, he destroyed one of Garou's monster forms with a single headbutt, one-shotting evil ocean water, Boris on top of that, and then the leader of the ninjas in the webcomic. And to put this all into perspective, this leader of the ninjas possessed 300 years of experience, some insanely strong weapons, and forbidden techniques written in scrolls. The ninja leader was literally a defining cornerstone and had a story for characters like Sonic and Flashy Flash. But here comes along Saitama. He's like, yeah, what do you do? He no-diffs him and kills him off screen as a gag joke. But all of these feats are simply the tip of the iceberg. They equate to nothing compared to what has occurred recently. During chapter 166, Blast confirmed that Saitama and Garou's clash would obliterate the entire Earth, ending humanity as we know it. However, what he didn't say was just how strong this punch really is. But don't worry everyone, we have that degree in anime bullshit science, so we are here to tell you exactly that. So, to break down the pure power of Saitama, let's analyze the clash between their serious punch squared. In chapter 167, Blast used his dimensional portal around Saitama and Garou to move them into space. The energy of this serious punch squared was too much for Blast to hold down, so the other Guardians of the Galaxy jumped in, giving him a hand. Together, they managed to redirect the impact of this attack outside the solar system, where if they didn't didn't do that, the whole solar system would have been wiped. We know this because the direction of the energy this attack produced was sent flying outside towards stars millions and millions of light years away. Murata illustrates this with a circular absence of stars after the explosion the strike sets off. To further add to the idea of Series Punch being at least a planet buster, if not galaxy level, Garou decides to copy and use this attack against Saitama after using his all-life eradication fist Gamma Ray Burst. This indicates he understood and believed the Series Punch was much stronger than that attack. The Gamma Ray Burst is a replication of the explosion which occurs when an extremely massive star collapses on itself and dies. Whilst it causes a supernova, it forms a black hole and sends out jets of energy. It is so powerful that in a few seconds, it gives out a magnitude of more energy than the sun will emit in its entire lifetime. Gamma ray bursts are thought to be highly focused explosions, with most of the explosion energy calamated into a narrow jet. Not only is it tens or hundreds of times brighter than a normal supernova, gamma ray bursts can outshine entire galaxies. In a close-up, it would literally burn out our eyes. But this attack also gives off radiation caused by a gamma ray burst, as stated by Blast in chapter 166. This radiation can kill anyone instantly, yet Saitama survived it like nothing happened.
That's not fair!
But this brings us back to Saitama's Serious Punch, which scales even greater than a gamma ray burst, especially if we read the manga and interpret that the absent star was due to this strike. To make things even more ridiculous, it seems that the explosion caused a void in space, removing any light from traveling through it. Now, accepting that Saitama's Serious Punch strike can easily destroy a star, let's try to calculate how much power it has. Though this is quite literally impossible to scale, let's use our own sun. The amount of energy needed to destroy any celestial body is known as the gravitational binding energy. For the sun, this is 6.87 e to the power 41 joules. The classical equation for kinetic energy is energy equals half an object's mass times velocity squared. This would mean the velocity needed has to be greater than the speed of light, meaning we have to shoot a mass the size of Earth at the sun at 9/10 the speed of light. Or according to Realonomics, we need a lump of TNT larger than the sun, roughly 60 billion trillion tons of TNT. And we know that this Serious Punch would have destroyed Earth, which has the binding gravitational energy of 2.24 times 1032 joules, or 225 million trillion joules. Woo-wee! Try to wrap your head around that one, mate. This means Saitama's Serious Punch strike is producing energy that ranges over these numbers that we've just stated. Or it's even greater if you take the interpretation that this clash resulted in an explosive power, destroying multiple stars far away. We see the result of Saitama's Serious Punch, where its impact produced a recoil, sending them both flying through space at extreme speeds. In a matter of a second, Garou hit the surface of Io, one of Jupiter's innermost moons. Now we know that Jupiter is quite far away from our planet. Saitama made Garou travel about 628.3 million kilometers. Now this is a major feat in itself, but the fact that Saitama erased the existence of all the stars in a straight path, it's something he didn't really expect. Like, do you see that hole in the panel? That in itself makes Saitama multi-solar system level. In the chapter, you can see that Blast can't deal with Saitama's power at all, making a clear difference between the levels at which Saitama and Blast stand at. Blast needed his Avengers combined to prevent major damage to Earth, and that seems to be the maximum extent of their power. The energy created by Saitama's attack alone would be enough to supply our planet with energy for a seemingly endless amount of time. Furthermore, Saitama also solidified his lifting strength in the chapter to at least planetary. With just 4 fingers, Saitama was able to destroy the whole Io moon in just a split second, despite being handicapped. This is him literally digging his hands into the surface and pulling up in a table flip form. Just that alone caused the entire crust of Io to rip off. To destroy Earth's moon, one would need to provide at least 1.24 times 10 to the power of 29 joules of energy to exceed the moon's gravitational binding energy, which equates to around 2.96 times 10 to the power of 13 megatons of TNT. To put this into perspective, the Tsar Bomber, the biggest nuclear explosive we have in the world right now, it has a blast yield of 50 to 58 megatons of TNT. So you would need around 500 billion Tsar bombs to come close to destroying the moon. Io's surface is bigger, meaning the amount of TNT is even greater. For more context, our moon is almost 390,000 kilometers away from Earth. Io is slightly bigger than our moon too, with a radius of 1,821.6 kilometers. So with only 4 fingers, Saitama lifted the whole surface, destroying it all. Do you guys understand what this means? Io has a mass of 8.9 times 10 to the power of 22 kilograms, where even if the crust is 1% of its total weight, it would mean Saitama's fingers can lift the whole of North America. Therefore, theoretically, Saitama, if he wanted, he could lift planet Earth with his 2 hands at full power.
Okay, now this brings us nicely onto speed. Let's start with an appetizer. We all know Saitama is faster than any of us can comprehend. Flashy Flash seems to think that he's the fastest man on Earth, but Saitama no-diffed this guy like he was just going for a jog in chapter 115. Now that's impressive in and of itself, but let's scale this even higher. What's more impressive is that Saitama proved he is faster than light before his training was even complete. This was in the volume 25 extras. Saitama realised that he was losing hair and got extremely angry about it. And so what do? He proceeded to move faster and faster in front of the mirror so that he could see the back of his head. Now, all of us understand the theory of relativity, right? The speed of light is a universal constant, and light in a vacuum always travels at the same speed, unless it's acted upon by outside forces like gravity. So essentially, Saitama moved faster than 186,000 miles a second, so that way he could see the reflection of light coming from the mirror that would be projecting the back of his head. Alright, okay. So moving faster than light is pretty goddamn insane, but would you believe me if I said that he can actually move faster than that? You see, in chapter 167, the impact of Saitama's punch and Garou's blast moved both of them to Jupiter in like a split second. We know Garou with the monster form was already travelling in microseconds against Platinum Sperm. Well, he's even faster now in his Cosmic Fear mode, and Saitama is scaling even higher than that. If we scale this at a high level, assuming they travel to Jupiter in microseconds without taking any damage, we can scale how fast they travelled using the data recorded by PBS. The speed of light from Jupiter to Earth takes 35 to 52 minutes for it to reach the planet. So let's make it an average of like 44 minutes. 44 minutes in seconds is 2,640 seconds, which is, and no, you've not misheard me here, 2,640,000,000 microseconds, meaning they travelled that many times faster than light. Now, if we want to scale them at the lower end, and I can't believe I'm saying that this is the lower end, but let's say that it took them around a whole second to get to Jupiter. If that was the case, then they were at least 2,640 times faster than light, people! So therefore, they are between 2,640 and 2,640,000,000 times faster than light, depending on how you interpret the story. Go on, call me insane. I know you're gonna do it. Start a war in the comments section right now. Go on, I dare you. Don't let me down. Okay, now there's one thing that we do have to remember: to take this speed feat with just a little pinch of salt. It was, after all, the recoil from the explosion that sent both Garou and Saitama this far, this quickly. It wasn't Saitama himself generating this speed. It's like when you skydive. You are falling at 120 miles per hour, but you yourself can't run at 120 miles per hour. But saying that, the impressive thing here is that it still shows that Saitama can travel at that speed without dying from the velocity or his brain becoming mush. In fact, he took a grand total of 0 damage from flying at that speed and still landed on his feet. At least when I hit the ground after falling out of the plane, it's gonna look like I'm a plate of spaghetti bolognese. That being said, his speed is still no joke, because we have to take into consideration that they landed on Jupiter's moon, not Jupiter itself. Also, there is no friction in space and gravity is weaker. Travelling at these speeds is why Saitama can create the omnidirectional punch, where there are 12 after images of himself before punching Garou. To be honest, if we used real life logic instead of anime logic here, Saitama would be everywhere at once. Another piece of evidence that supports Saitama's omnipresent speed is when Garou used his portal to escape the omnidirectional serious punch. However, before Garou could escape through it, Saitama was already inside the portal coming the other way, meaning that Saitama travelled above the speed of light around Io to find where Garou was portaling to, just so that he could flex coming out the other way, meaning that Saitama covered the distance that is equivalent to the moon of Io, whose radius is 1,826,000 kilometers in an instant, and then delivered a blow creating a constellation this big. Alright, now let's move on to the last topic, defense and durability. Due to his harsh training, Saitama's defenses have reached a level where it can be referred to as complete invulnerability. The only time we've seen Saitama take any potential damage was in chapter 167, where Cosmic Garou used Saitama's own powers against him. Garou literally admits that Saitama is limitless, and that the only way for him to win is by endlessly copying Saitama, who keeps showing greater and greater feats of strength, hoping that his defense would fall away first. The ironic thing is that not even Saitama is enough to hurt Saitama. The aftermath of the serious punch squared that we discussed earlier did nothing to him. And even during the battle on Io, after the onslaught of Garou's attacks, which in his words were the combination of styles from countless schools combined together in perfect synergy, the best he could do was strip Saitama naked. But whilst we're on the topic, let's talk a little bit more about Io. I already said how just by surviving the journey there was an absolutely mind-boggling feat of durability, but to also survive standing on the moon too is also impressive. Io's surface temperature averages about -200 degrees Fahrenheit, resulting in the formation of sulfur dioxide snowfields. But Io's volcanoes can reach 3000 degrees Fahrenheit. Therefore, Io is often referred to as a celestial body of both fire and ice. On top of this, Jupiter blasts the moon with loads of radiation. However, we know that such a thing has no effect on Saitama, as he was unfazed by the cosmic radiation caused by the gamma ray burst from Garou, which left the other S-class heroes besides Blast completely incapacitated. A gamma ray burst emits the same amount of energy as a supernova, which occurs when a star collapses and bursts over weeks rather than seconds or minutes. Their peak luminosities can be 100 billion times greater than our suns and 1 billion times more than the brightest supernovas. The largest ever recorded gamma ray burst would shower the Earth with the equivalent of 300,000 megatons of TNT, or 30 times the entire world's nuclear arsenal. And on top of that, the gamma ray and X-ray radiation would deplete the ozone layer, thus causing a mass extinction. Yet, Saitama was just completely fine. Therefore, all forms of radiation can be presumed to have no effect on him, meaning that you can't physically hurt him to death, you can't mentally hurt him with psychic, can't turn him into mush by light speed travel, You can't poison him with toxic radiation. He can breathe in space. And if that wasn't enough and you decided, you know what, fuck it, I can't beat him, so I'm just gonna teleport him away to somewhere where he can't hurt me. Well, you know what? He can just forcibly move a hyperspace portal like it's nothing. So you can't even do that to him. Guys, Saitama is busted. And so now you know why Saitama is the only person that can take down the celestial being that calls itself God in One Punch Man. But if you want to know a little bit more about God and Blast's secret missions, then make sure you check out this video on your screen right now.